Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And I'm pretty comfortable in doing that extended spiel every single night. It's in that moment when I first come in that I throw out a little bit of energy, that little bit of follow me, right? Understanding that I have 5 seconds to catch your attention. And if I can catch your attention in those 5 seconds, maybe you'll give me another 5 seconds. I've been at this for a very long time. But in that choice that we all get to make at any given moment, I have instigated so much change in my life. In the beginning, I thought I was heading this way, you know, but you come to learn, right? I talk about it all the time in that idea of being sheep herded. It's something I don't care for, especially when I recognize what's going on, because I look at that as manipulation. I look at that as somebody wants me to go somewhere that they want me to go rather than allowing me to go where I want to go or go where I think I should go or I think we should go. And each one of us gets to take that the way that we want to take it. But, you take it that way, but in truth, it could be simmering in your systems. We all have to answer to the man, right? Whether it's a parent, some kind of guardian, we have to listen to our bosses and our management. We listen to the heads of our congregations in church or in temple, in our communities with our politicians who take care of us or should be taking care of us. We can expand that out and out and out, to the point of the whole universe. But it's to each one of us to decide how much of a big of a bite we're going to take out of that. And more importantly, because lots of us don't want to take big bites out of the world. Sometimes we just want to take little nibbles, but we want to have little nibbles in the destinations that we want to have those little nibbles in, you know? But sometimes we do have to answer to others, and that's part of being a community. So we're just going to kind of expand on this. If you don't know, we got that word again, community, yesterday. I don't know. It's trying to teach me something, and I know there are lots of directions I could go with that word. I really do. But we have to understand that the main computer, the main company is that company that we keep with ourselves, that community that we keep with ourselves. And to each one of us, we have one of those. I know lots of people don't believe so, right? Lots of people don't feel comfortable in their own clothes, in their own bodies, in their own lives. But however life looks to you in that moment that you're sitting in, that's your life, right? And you can escape it, right? If you have those abilities, you have those know hows. But I think the idea is not to try to escape it. It's to try to immerse yourself in the experience, in that taking up the reins, because I think maybe, you know, this is going to be something that's more common moving forward. That, in this moment, it might not seem like there's, right, a lot of individualism. There's not a lot of uniqueness. There's not a lot of people waking up to some of those ideas that some of us can appreciate, right? And some of us don't appreciate it, right? Lots of people don't appreciate it. They look at it like it's the offense, but it's just something that's not recognizable. It's not familiar and it's never been experienced. And I think each one of us should be the judge in our experiences to feel out what's right for us, right? Only right for us without that dictation, right? Of course, management and heads of companies, right? They know how they want things to run, right? And they expect the crew, right, behind their back, who's going to be supporting them in their ideas. I get that. But don't you think that possibly that we should be looking at those people that are holding up as the cream of the crop, the best that you could get your hands on, right? And even if they do have faults and weaknesses, that sometimes, right, we have to see for the whole in that support. If it is a fair trade in that understanding, right? We are a work in progress. And I would hate to think that that one person who has that answer that I most desperately need, that I wouldn't search them out if I knew they had that answer. I wouldn't stop and have a conversations and an experience because I felt they were too far beyond my reach or not equal to, right? We're all in the same storm, but we're in different boats. And you guys hear me say that all the time. And it's true, though, because we're going to experience the storm different and talk about storms. Winnipeg, Manitoba, if you guys haven't heard, if you guys are even interested in the prairies, we are getting hit. And it wasn't supposed to start till around 11 o'clock tonight. I guess it's moving out of Alberta and Saskatchewan, and now it's coming into Manitoba. It's going to hit basically the southern part of the province, and I'm going to assume the northern part of the states, but it's supposed to be really wicked. We have three categories. We have yellow, orange, and red. And we are in an orange, and an orange is saying it's coming, but we're Manitobans. We can handle it, and we'll do the best precautions as we can to get us through. And they got all their snow plows and everybody ready to go. Won't be until tomorrow afternoon. If it's starting now, I checked and it looks like the storm is just still gonna linger until afternoon tomorrow. But in that time, we're going to drop about 15 to 20 centimeters of snow. But I have a great big street light in front of my apartment window, and I can sit here, and the light, even though it's dark outside, the snow as it passes the big street light, I can see that it's blowing, and it's starting to get lots, but I think it's just starting. So it's going to be a wicked storm tonight. I went to the store. The grocery stores they're always busy. If they hear there's a big storm coming, everybody stocks up with supplies like it's the end. It's the end of the world. Wipe out all the toilet paper and stuff. It's humorous, but at the same time, it's smart. In being prepared. And because we do live in a province with extremes, you never know. We go through everything. Like this year we had tornadoes, and it's been a long time since we had tornadoes, but we get floods and we get that extreme heat and the cold. Oh my goodness. come and hang out with us and, right, do some, what do you call that, snow sledding with the dogs, dog sledding, right? And they have, yeah, big winter festivals. The river freezes over and everybody skates to work on the river when they work downtown. It is an experience. And this storm is going to be an experience. And I'm really looking forward to sitting here. Well, I guess now for a couple of hours because it wasn't supposed to start till 11. And usually I'm in bed by 11:30 or midnight at the latest. And I would have missed the majority of the storm, right? But yeah, it for me. This is good. This is good. This is going to be fun. I might have a hard time shutting the night down tonight just because I want to sit here and watch it. I have a pretty bright street in front of me, and yeah, makes me want to watch it now. So what we're going to do is we're going to get right into a card tonight. How's that? Oh, Hannah, Merry Christmas, Hannah. Christmas Eve, 7:30 Central. If you want to come and hang out with us, Hannah, Christmas Eve, 7:30 Central. Come and hang out with us, right? You can sit in your pajamas, have an eggnog or a cocktail, right? And just join us. Kathy's here. Oh my goodness. Oh, good, good. Go about your evening. I hope you're having an amazing night, right? Amazing. We're midweek now, aren't we? Had to look at the calendar today. I wasn't too sure what day it was. The days just kind of right. We're in the winter now, and I'm going to make use of winter, right? Lots of use. I today and yesterday I was actually in Ontario provincial parks and I was picking my parks, but I kind of had to, for where I want to go next year, it's going to require a few extra days because I want to go a little bit more south. So that means more travel time. And again, I don't want to do those one camp spot nights. I want to spend a couple of nights in every camp spot. So I'm thinking maybe I might do 3 weeks this year coming up, right? Depends. We're looking at the budget, what comes across my path. And this is what I'm thinking that I am going to celebrate going into my retirement with a 3 week trip with 10 provincial parks, but 2 nights at each one. And only 2 of those parks I am doing again, but it was only because I did them in one day and I didn't actually get to really truly experience the parks themselves. So we're going to do them again. And it's funny, one of those parks I was thinking of doing, I had done twice, and yet I only stayed there because it was close proximity to my favorite amethyst mine. So I always camped there, but I didn't really camp there. It was just a place to pitch my tent or set up my back end of my car while I went off to dig crystals, right? But yeah, so that's the plan, I think. 10 different parks, 3 weeks to get it done. That's going to be a lot of money. That's going to be like the car rental, the spots, the gas, and that requires me, right? Chop, Cindy. Go make some money. Put yourself on a financial, mental, emotional, physical kind of diet. Go strict. Go strict with yourself, Cindy. Like a Buddhist monk or something. You can do it, right? I can do it. And then I'll have my own vehicle. Right? Then I'll right, this is the idea. Nothing gets done unless you move towards it, right? Unless you just and it's not necessarily you have to go all heads in. You can do those baby steps, right? So yeah, I have some printing and stuff to do, and I have no ink in my printer. So instead of spending $100 on new ink, I think I'll go spend $20 and get my resumes all printed up. And I have some official papers that have to go out too. So, and I got lease to fill out, and yeah, so I'm going to get that all done. I'm going to get right back on track, and we're just going to get that vehicle, right? I loved. Careful of those pesky chipmunks camping next year. Amazing how they opened a jar of peanut butter. Wasn't that crazy, Hannah? I thought so. I thought so too. That was I didn't real and that was a chipmunk. That wasn't a squirrel. That was a chipmunk. I only in that park I only had two squirrels, and they didn't come near my camp spot. I only saw them in the camp spot next to me. But those chipmunks, oh my goodness, he wasn't afraid of me at all. But I never thought in a million years that they would be able to open a jar. But you know what? That's the evolution, you know. It's not humans that are evolving by themselves. There are lots of things. They are discovering so many different new species in the world right now, and it's getting to the point where it's not even surprising. It doesn't deserve mention in the magazines or in the news or anything, because there's so many new species being discovered. Not only being discovered, but there are species being resurrected right now. They brought back the bear wolf. I have to do some research on that one because I don't know too much about the bear wolf, but they brought it back, and the Chinese are bringing back the mammoth as we speak. They're working on that. The Tasmanian devil, which is actually the thylacine. Uh, the dodo bird naturally came back. Um, it must have mixed with another species because it's a cross species of dodo. But again, that's evolution, right? You evolve. Every human being, we evolve differently. Like, just even think in the past 100 years how much we have evolved, and it's only going to get faster now that we have this technology, right? Where we live in this age where innovation is going really, really fast, but in one direction in this digital age. It's going to be interesting to see where we're going to end up. You know, I hope we don't end up isolated. You know, I hope we don't end up extinct, right? All glued to the screens, right? Even for myself, I'm always, what do you call that, scanning just to make sure that everything is good, that, you know, I understand right now. I'm just kind of locked into the lessons, that I'm locked into my own experience, and I'm trying not to be locked in to where I'm at in the moment, meaning I'm always making movement. I'm always moving forward. But yeah, animals are evolving, and it doesn't surprise me that the squirrels are opening jars of peanut butter. We're talking to whales now. We're having conversations with whales and dolphins, and you know, baby kittens are being born knowing what a cat litter box is, right? That we're domesticating everything, right? Donkeys, horses, right? Even vegetables like the bananas and the strawberries. How many other fruits or vegetables out there have we modified, right? I bet you a lot, right? Just to see. Well, just what popped into my mind is the pumpkins, right? When you go down south and they have those big pumpkins, the biggest pumpkin contest, and the seeds are worth a ton of money. So even at the end, that giant pumpkin collapses before it's able to go into the arena to be judged, those pumpkin seeds can be worth like hundreds of dollars. And you know how many pumpkin seeds you get in a pumpkin that size? Yeah, it's like purebred horses, right? You know, you breed them off and the horses are worth a lot of money because of that relationship, right? Okay, you guys, let's just go into a card. Hannah, happy to have you here tonight. Oh, Eugene's here too. Hello, Eugene. Thank you so much. I appreciate that you popped in, and thank you guys for the thumbs up. It's always appreciated. I always forget to ask for the thumbs up, right? But the idea is for me to forget because that's where the goodies are. And you know, it's not just that I rely on those other parts of me to come to the surface. You know, it's in my own practice to bring the courage and the bravery to come into the conversation too, and to be able to switch in and out of it properly, understanding, you know, it's in that partnership with myself that maybe, right, that will be able to make a little bit of movement here on YouTube and pick up folk along the way that kind of want to hang out and yeah, ride along with us for a little while, right? We don't always have to stay forever because when we change, right, we change. And when we change, sometimes it makes it so that the things that used to be interesting for us are not interesting anymore. And then we all find other interests, but you know, it's that idea of building a memory, you know, walking together, learning things together. And then when those lessons come along the way, somewheres in the future, when we, right, no longer impact each other's lives in any way, that we have that memory, that good memory of when we hung out and how fun it was and how much we learned and what an amazing experience it was, right? So I never judge people along the way, right? Because change is amazing. That's the idea, is that we change, that we're always innovating, that we're always bringing change into our lives. And I know change is not comfy. We all love the couch and the remote control, don't we? Right? Because it makes it so that we don't have to reach that far outside of ourselves where we might feel unsafe, unwelcomed, right? Or unqualified. And that's the truth. You have to talk yourself into it, right? Lots of times you do. But as you move along, it gets a little bit easier in that. You get a little bit more confidence in what you're doing. And then I don't know what the then is, right? You just keep moving, right? Because nothing advances in the past, right? Because once it's past, it's past. It can be information that you can carry into the future, but you have to be moving into the future in order to be able to carry it there. And sometimes those bags are so heavy that you have to drop them along the way just to survive. And that's the truth, because that's why they call it baggage, right? Because it's all it is just baggage. But those good memories, right? And that's the idea. You're right. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. And you just can't keep the good memories. But we have so many, right, of the other memories, isn't it amazing to have something that you can smile about, that you could reminisce about, that you could sit there and go, oh my goodness, that was so much fun. If I could go back again, what would I do different? And have that moment of imagination, because you never know. Maybe you'll be able to somewheres go back to that moment and be able to do that moment over again, right? And have a different outcome in that. But you have to remember, right? When you play with the past, when you play with things that were meant to be, right? That crank is pretty that crank is pretty hard, right? To get you back on track, and it has to get you back on track, right? That's in the experimenting, right? That was what we were talking about yesterday, about that rope, that you have to go against that rope. You have to stretch out a little bit, right? Just to feel it out. And we'd much rather be sitting on the couch with the remote control. But how can we feel safe in our environment when our environment just feels more constricted all the time because we're not moving out of it in any way, right? And it does get easier, it really does. Okay, you guys, here we go. We're just going to go in. We're going to grab a card and go into it for a couple of minutes. I only said it like that because that word community that keeps popping up. Here we go. This is going to be the card today. Oh, I think we had this card maybe last week. Recently, we had this card, Freedom, because I remember telling a story about, oh no, it wasn't. I didn't pull this card. This card was actually a lesson today, and it was by two different content creators. Thornton, I can't remember his first name, but this word freedom. And the first thing that came to my mind when they were talking about freedom, and then the first thing when we pulled the card that came to my mind was in those experiences of losing my parents, right? I grew up in a dynamic family where I didn't meet my father's expectations. And in fact, my father didn't have much expectations for me, much faith in me, if that's the word that I want, confidence in me. And, my mother was pretty, well, I would like to say indifferent, because indifferent would just make me invisible, and that invisible. And that truly wasn't the case with that relationship with my mother. But I always worked hard because my father was my savior. My father was my saving grace. My mother wouldn't try the things that she normally try if my father was around. And if you guys have been hanging out with me for any length of time, my father was gone for months at a time, numerous times a year. But I would be standing at that door. I got whipped that he was on his way home, right? After being away for months at a time. Like, I couldn't imagine how compulsively codependent I would have been with him because of what I would have endured while he was away. And I wouldn't have been able to explain any of it to him, right? Because it was made quite clear not to, right? And I would never have said anything that might have agitated him enough that, he might have gotten sick. He was ill already. But I always tried to appease my father, right? Fight with my sisters to see who was going to make his tea or light a cigarette for him or get his slippers or rub his feet or whatever he needed done. He was the king of the castle. And you know, when my father passed away, I was very hit with the understanding, and I wasn't woke to any of these ideas, but it was something that I took note of, was that sense of freedom that I had immediately. And there was nobody in this world I loved more than my father, that I would have given anything to have traded places with my father. And that's the truth. But when my father died, there was an instant feeling of the most incredible sense of feeling of freedom. And the reason for that, and it was instantly understood to me, is that I didn't have to try to prove to him that I could meet some form of expectations if he might choose to have some expectations of me. So I was always stumbling over myself. So I was overcompensating. I was very codependent. I couldn't even make a move without his insight in that. But there were gifts in that. I was very hyper vigilant. I was paying attention to my dad's needs and his thoughts and his ideas, anything that would bring me to a state where, right, that my father might have expectations for me. And it never came, right? Never came. It didn't mean he didn't love me, right? He most definitely did. I knew that, right? But it's different when your parent thinks you're never going to amount to anything. But when my father passed away, that freedom came from the idea that I didn't have to meet up to his expectations anymore. I knew that instantly, right? I didn't have to have some great revelation or anything. It was just paying attention to my feelings, paying attention to where I was at. And that freedom was amazing. I had the same experience when my mother passed away, because I was something that I wasn't around my mother, because I had to meet expectations, expectations that weren't me, right? Those rules and those relationships that were based on what she needed and wanted or expected. So when she passed away, there was that feeling of, thank goodness, I right, this is a weight that's come right off of me, right? This is a heavy one, you guys. This is a weight that's come right off of me. And it came off in a way that I truly did feel the relief of that. If I hadn't had that moment where we had that experience where we can exchange forgiveness in the end, it might have been a different story, but I was able to totally let go and feel good in how I let go in that. For lots of people, freedom is different. I have another sense of freedom, which is when I go on my trips in September, right? It's, we get locked down. Right? Each one of us is accountable to someone, right? Our partners, our children, our our mentors, our bosses, our coworkers, our neighbors, and we can go on and on and on and on. But that's community, and that is the wires, right? That we sometimes get crossed in not understanding how closely or how unclose we actually are meant to be with each other. And yeah, so that was the first thing that came to my mind, right? Sense of freedom for everybody is going to be different. I mean, if you go to a third world country and you say, okay, here's your ticket for two to Canada, right? That might be freedom for somebody. A child that's been enslaved, right? And has been rescued in the moment. That could be freedom. Sometimes escaping a religion that you were brought up to believe to be true, but in your heart of hearts, you knew that you were meant to be understanding. I was trying to look of examples. I was going to say a Buddha. You could be a Buddha person, right? Hare Krishna. And I don't mean to laugh at that, but it's trying to, in this day and age, to, right, understand that we're all assimilating with each other. And there are going to be, right, forms of etiquette in being able to maneuver in that. We're not quite close to that yet. And so in that constricts us, doesn't it? We don't have that sense of free speech to be ourselves, because if we're truthful, right, this isn't ourselves, because we were brought up a different way as children. So we are learning in that process to be what's for the next generation. And that is movement. That's evolution. That's right. That's moving forward, and people don't recognize that work, and that is hard work. That is truly hard work, especially when we are butting heads up with, right? I'm looking at the storm. It could be a storm, but we could be butting heads with our neighbor, our family, our coworkers, our bosses, and ourselves, even. But can you imagine if you can work on it and to resolve that, and not resolve it in a way where you're waiting for somebody to pass away to feel that freedom, that you're able to feel that freedom right now? And sometimes it just takes a conversation. Sometimes it just means saying goodbye to somebody. Sometimes it's standing up for your beliefs, but for each one of us, that's going to be a little bit different, right? A little bit different. And I find myself sitting there myself, right? But that sense of freedom is not going to come unless we keep moving towards it, right? Maybe that's the idea. Maybe that's the destination, right? That each one of us can be our own point, our own person, our own being, right? Make our own decisions, have free choice to live an existence that's comfortable and be around people who are comfortable, right? And then to imagine something different and be welcomed into that community of differentness, right? But we're not quite there yet, right? Some of us are moving into it, some of us aren't even trying yet, but some of them are trying and failing, and that's me 100%. And I hear this term all the time, popped into my mind. So I say the hungry ghost, you know, that soul who sees it, who feels it, who tries with all their might and yet fails them, but picks themselves up and tries again and chases it down and tries something else and fails, and has done that a gazillion times. You know, a hungry ghost. And they talk about the hungry ghost as ever failing, never accomplishing. But it's because this is the way we think, that they never will, right? And if we think that they'll think that, and it keeps them in that state of repetitiveness of failing themselves. And right, how does that make us feel in the end? Right, it doesn't feel like freedom. It just feels like being chained to that person, right? That human being that's trying to create something beautiful out of nothing, right? When nobody thinks they can do it, right? And that's the truth. That's a hard one. That's a hard one to digest, to understand that, we can have these amazing insights and these amazing understandings, and you can vocalize them sometimes, right? Express them till you're blue in the face and not get through to one single person. But that doesn't mean that you just don't come in and try again. And I'll be back, you guys. Try again tomorrow. It's only Wednesday. We got a couple of more days, and we're going into Christmas week, I think, right? Christmas week. Oh my goodness. It moves on us fast, doesn't it? Right? But sometimes too fast. Yeah. Smell the roses. That's what came into my mind right now, right? Not to miss the beautiful landscapes and the beautiful experience in what we're trying to chase down, right? Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. Have a great night.